Okay, we're still not hearing you. So our station manager's working that. Eric had a oh, it's the aux. Okay, Eric got it now.
Uh,
All
all
right.
good?
Sorry about that, Eric.
No, no problem.
So you've been the state treasurer since January, and how's it going so far?
Things are going well. Things are going well. We're settling in. We hit the ground running. We had a very smooth transition thanks to Treasurer Wooden, and we've been able to really get right to work. So excited about the opportunities. I think we're in a really good spot as a state to build on the success that we've had over the last several years and really position ourselves to be in a different place longer term.
Now, mostly that means you're managing state pensions and other investments, right, to get the highest return. And is that what you're talking about mostly? Are you having a new approach to how you're investing the money?
Certainly. I mean, well, it's certainly that. And one of the big pieces on the pension fund side is in addition to the work that we're going to be doing to really just improve returns, it's also about the fact that we've made these huge contributions to our pension funds over the last several years. And
Just so people know about that, we had some of the highest, if I'm not mistaken, per capita debt in our pension funds in the country because of decades and decades of politicians from both parties not putting in realistic amounts, though, how it was going to cost. So the last bunch of years, especially with the rainfall of money in the pandemic, really federal relief money, we've been paying down that pension. What does that look like, Eric? How much of a difference is that making?
It's huge because I mean, really, when you're paying more into our pension funds, what it also allows you to do is you're investing that, and that's growing over time as well. So in addition to kind of our required contributions over the last several years, we've also made about $6 billion in additional payments to our unfunded pension liabilities. And what we're also doing is the legislature just continued those guardrails that we've had in place, which ultimately, a volatility cap, a revenue cap, and the commitment that when we have a full rainy day fund right now, those additional surpluses that we've been able to realize as a state have gone into our pension funds.
Could I just explain that for our listeners? So what that means is that we have a rainy day fund means we set aside for emergencies, and we fully funded ours, which is a good thing. And then, and if we still have more money we're bringing in because revenues have been high because of trends in the economy or what years hedge fund owners are paying their taxes, you're saying that money's going into paying down pension. So do you have any kind of sense for the average person in Connecticut, how much they're going to be saving over time because you made that extra $6 billion investment in the pension fund?
Yeah, it's huge. I mean, we're seeing on an annual basis about $500 million of savings annually as we're looking at our general fund from those additional contributions. And that, again, that's on an annual basis, year over year. So it's a huge savings to our state. And when I mentioned kind of the continuation of that on a bipartisan basis, we just passed the continuation of those guardrails. So keeping the kind of structure and mechanisms in place that will, essentially require us to continue to pay down debt when we have these surpluses. So, it's been a really big commitment on the part of the state. And I think it's huge because it really positions us in terms of addressing our overall fiscal health, which we've done. We've seen several bond ratings in the last few years, bond rating increases. But
in other words, the bond rating agency is saying Connecticut's doing a better job of managing its money so then we could borrow money for less of an interest rate.
Exactly. And it's because we've made these commitments to really addressing some of our structural and long-term issues. But it also puts us in a position, again, in terms of, in addition to addressing our, immediate concerns and the kind of overall fiscal health, it allows us to make some of these longer-term investments in our state as well.
So I hadn't thought of that before we came on. You were mentioning that once the state makes the decision to pay down the pension debt and put more money into the pension fund, you have more money to invest so that you're now have the responsibility of investing that money well so we get further savings down the line. And
Absolutely.
Have you changed your strategy for that? Have you changed the strategy or evolved the strategy of how you're investing that money?
So what I'm really looking to do is to help build a world-class investment team within our office. And we have some really great talent. We want to make sure that we have consistency there and that we're able to retain the talent that we have. We have so much talent, investment expertise in the state of Connecticut. And so the Treasurer's Office works closely with the Investment Advisory Council, which really helps the Treasurer's Office set investment strategy and policy. And so we're seeking to make some legislative changes to really allow us to bring in some great talent on the Investment Advisory Council. So, we're looking at this holistically. We want to make sure that we are bringing the right talent in, that we're building a culture of excellence within our investment team.
So Erick Russell, State Treasurer, it sounds like you're saying more than like telling us which particular fund you're going to invest in or strategy, you go to fixed assets or more speculative investments. You're talking about talent makes the difference, which is clearly what people think in the industry. They talk about David Swensen when he was the Yale investment officer, and he had that superhero team of talent.
Yeah.
So what is the legislative change you're seeking so that you can have a team of superheroes as well?
Yeah, so one is we call PFM as our investment team. So we have a bill addressing kind of the compensation structure and allowing us more flexibility within the PFM team to really not only bring in great talent and attract great talent, but also to retain that talent.
In other words, pay them more. We need to pay people more to keep them.
I mean, we haven't been as competitive salary-wise as a lot of places across the country, and we're not looking to set the top of the market in terms of compensation, but we want to make sure we're able to bring the right people in and keep them.
Well, the idea is that if you spend another $50,000 on a person, that might save you $50 million, correct? If they know how to do investments.
I mean, absolutely, right? And one of the big things that we know is that continuity within a pension fund and having the right people stay on board is there's very close correlation between that and returns at the end of the day.
And I think about David's, and I wonder when you want to attract people, I guess they got to look at this young state treasurer who believes so much in what he's doing. You got to inspire them, right? Because no matter how much we pay him, a hedge fund is going to pay him more. So, like David Swensen always talked about that. I remember talking to him. He was the late investment advisor at Yale, who basically is our generation's most successful public interest investor for universities. And he was driven so much by a calling. And he communicated to all his people who went on to run other university hedge investment arms, which was that when you might make more on Wall Street. David Swensen could have been a multi-millionaire rather than just wealthy, but he felt I'm fine being wealthy because instead of ultra wealthy because I'm keeping knowledge alive. I believe in the mission of universities. I believe that these dollars we make with our investments are gonna keep the pursuit and quest of knowledge alive and make the world a better place. How do you embody or express that same mission for you when you're talking to this team you're trying to retain?
No, I think that's exactly right. Is what is at the core of the work that we're doing is a commitment to public service, and the talent that we're looking to attract are folks that could be working in a lot of different spaces, right? But I think it's one, having a very clear vision on what we're trying to do, and the mission that is ultimately about really improving the lives of residents of our state. And making that commitment. And I think building a team where people are excited about the work they're doing, they enjoy the people they're working with. And I think we've made some really great strides on that front in terms of building the team out. And so, part of this bill and the legislation is to help us, it's attracting talent. It's also building people up within the organization. And, one example of that is we have a great analyst who started as an intern in the office, and she's worked her way up. And so having some more flexibility to kind of provide this step ladder for her to continue to work up within the office, that's a part of, it's a component of the bill as well. So we're excited about the opportunities. I think we're really in a place for us as a state to make some huge strides with the commitment from the governor and the legislature in addressing a lot of these really long-term and structural challenges that we've had.
So Erick, when you came in, you had a surprise your very first week on the job, probably, which was that there was this incredible expose in the Connecticut Mirror about how your predecessor basically had his knees cut off by his own party. The legislature passed the bill, so it became a law, that your office was supposed to administer a new program to deal with the racial wealth gap. It was called Baby Bonds, and for about 15,000 kids a year born into Husky, we were going to take just $3,200 when they're born. Invested for them. You were going to invest it, talking about mission-based investing. So when they're 18, when it's worth, let's say, $11,000, they'll have some money to get a start on life that other people get when they're born into wealthier families, whether that's to buy a home, go to college, start a business. But the Democratic governor opposed the law, but it was a law, and he signed it. And all these emails discovered by Connecticut Mirror was they were like viciously undercutting the program. They were making sure that even though it passed into law, it would never be funded, and it hasn't for years. And they even said something kind of insulting to you, and you said on the campaign trail that you're for baby bonds. The chief of staff of the Lamont administration made a joke, baby bonds will fix that, LOL, meaning like Erick Russell thinks he's going to come in and carry out a law that was passed to help address interracial wealth. He'll see what happens when he gets in. How did that feel, and how are you doing?
So I will tell you, I mean, I don't, I'm not one to feed into the gossip or the back and forth. I came in, as I talked about on the campaign trail, completely committed to this cause. And we have worked diligently since coming in to make sure that the program is ready to implement on July 1st when it is set to start. We have been working very closely with the governor's office and the administration and the legislature to make sure that we have all of the pieces in place to implement the program. And the only thing that's really being held up right now is the funding. And I will say we've had very productive conversations. I came into this looking at it as I'm starting with a clean slate. I don't know everything that's happened or what all the dynamics there were prior to me coming in. But as I said, I've had conversations with the governor. We've been working closely with the administration, making sure that the program is ready to implement. I know one of the major kind of hurdles was that there was some opposition to funding the program through bonding. And we have been looking at a host of different ways to fund the program, through.
I thought that's what the legislature approved, though, that it be funded through bonding.
It is. But again, I came into this with the idea that I'm having an open mind as to how we get there. And so
you don't care where the money comes from. You just care that the program starts and it gets funded.
Well, and I want to make sure that we're funding the program in a way that's going to be most cost effective and that's going to ultimately, make sure that we're able to deliver. And so, we've been working very closely with the legislature. There is still a ton of support for the program, and I think we are going to be successful in making sure that we stay on target with that July 1st implementation date.
So, Eric, are you saying that you think it might not have to go on the bond agenda? Have you identified alternative sources of funding for this?
Yeah, we're open to many different sources of funding or some combination of funding sources. And those are conversations that we're having now, both with the legislature and the governor's office. And so, I will just say, I feel very confident in the ability to work collaboratively to get this done. And this is a huge opportunity for us as a state. I mean, as I mentioned before, we've made this progress in terms of addressing our overall fiscal health. But we also have many of these structural issues that are still there in terms of, one of the largest wealth gaps in the state and, racial and generational inequality. And this is a direct opportunity to understanding that this is a piece of the puzzle. It's not the solution by itself, but to make some of these long-term investments in really providing more equity and opportunity in our state. And, in this seat, I'm somewhat uniquely positioned in thinking about the long-term future of our state, not just about kind of our investments, our decision-making on an annual basis.
And as you said, you come in fresh. You're someone no one's angry at, has any prior fights with. You can take it fresh. Have you identified a specific funding source that you can name separate from bonding to get the $50 million you'll need this year to get it going?
So I think there's several things that we're looking at, and I don't want to kind of narrow it down to anything because I think these are the conversations that we're having. But I think looking at several different types of revenue streams where we could be funding all or a portion of the program out of the general fund. I think there are other ways to potentially bond this that are not just general obligation bonds that are sitting on the state's debt. And so again, I think some combination of the program. I think there's also it's set up right now where we're funding the program over 12 years. $50 million a year in bonding. I think there's ways that we could probably do it a little bit more efficiently by funding more of the program up front, which at the end of the day may save, we're talking about a $600 million program. If you're funding more of that up front, you might be funding this program for $400 or $500 million at the end of the day. So I think, again, we're keeping an open mind. We're excited to be working collaboratively with the legislature and the governor's office on this.
Sounds like very creative. Sounds like very creative thinking. And I'm not going to push you any farther on it because you got some negotiating to do. And I'm wondering if you'll come back after July 1st and tell us how you got it over the goal line.
I'm happy to. I'm always happy to come on and see you, Paul.
Well, it's always a pleasure to talk to Erick Russell. He's our hometown guy up there at the Capitol, first constitutional officer from New Haven since 1986. And he's thinking in the long term with baby bonds and the state's pension debt and funding for the future. Erick, thank you for joining us on Dateline New Haven.
Thank you, Paul. Happy to be here.
And we're going to take it out with the Afro-Semitic Experience performing I Wish I Knew How It'd Feel to Be Free from the group CD A Plea for Peace. And we'll be back in an hour with Mike Lawler. We'll have some other insights about criminal justice and state politics. This is Paul Bass, inviting you to fly free with us all day and all night on WNHH, New Haven's home for community radio.